say, if you don't watch Snowfall, you haven't watched it yet, you might want to click off this video because I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Drop it, I'll let you go. Let's go, Franklin.
In this video, I'm going to be talking about the reasons why it was important for the writers of Snowfall to give Franklin the ending that they did, and all of the symbolic meanings behind it. So I watched the last episode of an upstanding series called Snowfall that's basically just about the distribution of cocaine in South Central LA on a mass and minor level, where the main character of the show, Franklin Saint, is a kid who came from nothing and eventually made himself something through the roads of the drug game. Starting off as a weed man under the guise of his uncle, then eventually becoming known for selling harder drugs with the help of his auntie and Leon and Jerome and this guy. I really can't remember his name.
Slap your daddy. Slap your motherfucking daddy.
Go on, man, smack him. Oh, come on, man, you can do better than that.
Now, for somebody who's never watched the show before, judging by that brief description, they might not even want to watch one episode because there are so many shows airing right now that sound the exact same. You know, we have Power, Power Book 2, BMF, Raising Kanan, pretty much all of 50 Cent shows. But out of all of those shows, I would honestly name Snowfall as the most recommended from me. Not only because it's a John Singleton production, but also because there's a slight difference between those shows and this one. And that minor difference is extremely important.
Smack your goddamn daddy! Yeah! I'm gonna show you how.
See, Snowfall isn't like any other show because it highlighted the concept of, the reality of the war on drugs ignited by the war on black people. And yes, drug abuse affects more than just African Americans. That's a pretty obvious fact, but for this specific show during this specific time period that the show took place, it's pretty obvious what the writers and creator John Singleton was hinting at. During the 80s, the crack epidemic was like a plague. It was prominent and powerful in the destruction of many people's lives and families in more ways than one. For the users, the families of the users, the dealers, and the dealers' families, entire communities were completely destroyed and turned upside down. All of this occurred after the rise, reign, success, and fall of the Black Panther Party in the late 70s. This is why Franklin's father, Alton, was such an important character. Alton was an ex-member of the Black Panther Party before it was demolished. Once the party was demolished, so was Alton's life. He went from being an activist that stood for something to being a homeless alcoholic that cared for nothing, abandoning his wife, Sissy, and his son, our main character, Franklin Saint. Once Franklin decided that he wanted to make some real money is when the heat started turning up for him a little bit.
Yeah!
I honestly can't remember how the word got out about him selling, but it did. And when it did, here came the little bad wolf, Teddy. Franklin and Leon being ambushed and kidnapped by Teddy was so symbolic, almost so symbolic that I feel like I don't even have to explain it because you just know. Like, how do you kidnap somebody and then force them to work with you? And if they don't work with you, you're gonna rat them out. All of that was against their will. Needless to say, Alton tried to warn Franklin about Teddy, but you know how that goes. Once Franklin started making a killing off of selling drugs, I kind of got to thinking about the moral compass of this type of lifestyle. I started thinking about how a person in an environment and a time period like that can build something for themselves while remaining righteous and keeping their morals intact. Because he went from having a good reputation and being a good kid to becoming a complete unrecognizable monster. It's almost as if his drive and determination became the exact reason for his downfall.
I built this shit. Me. Brick by brick. And I'll be damned if I let you tear it down just because you don't like the way another nigga talk.
He never cared about anybody but himself. He said he was working for the people, but as soon as somebody crossed him, what'd he do? He threw them right under the bus. And here you are talking about the white man's ass when everybody gotta kiss your ass, or else. I help people. Help people? My God, you listen to yourself? God damn.
Once he was in and making money he had never made before, he got tunnel vision, created a plan that would have him set for the rest of his life. And through all of this planning, festering underneath the surface of what was inside of him, there was a huge amount of addiction and greed for his money and power, which didn't take its full form until his money got taken away from him in a blink of an eye, by the exact person who controlled his every move. And what's so ironic about all of this is that he didn't see it coming. Franklin recognized that he was being controlled by Teddy, But the thing about that was that he didn't exactly recognize that everything that he owned wasn't really his. And during the process of him trying to get his money back, which he tried multiple times and failed, when nothing went Franklin's way, he chose for it to go no way, which in my opinion is a really dumb decision considering the fact that he wasn't completely wiped out. He wasn't wiped out of all of his resources. He still had something to hold on to. But when nothing went his way, the way that he wanted it to go, he decided for it to go no way.
You know, I'm trying real fucking hard to make you understand just how desperate I am.
And that is a pretty common act of a person who's an addict. It's hard for them to rationalize anything. Throwing adult temper tantrums, threatening to harm people he claims to love are the exact actions of an addict when they don't get their way.
What about Mr. Right? What about him? What about Kevin? And even Rob, or man, boy, your dad? On all the you and your little motherfucking minions done plotted on in between. Tiana, Khadijah, Lenny, Carvel, him, her, him, bodies!
What people don't recognize is that dealers are addicts for power and money, but no one seems to see it that way. Like Franklin, many of them get attached to external possessions or substances that make them feel good. And as a result of this addiction, just like his father, Franklin went from being a rich kingpin that had something to a broke alcoholic that had nothing. Now, some people were upset at the writers for ending the show this way because I guess they wanted him to go out like Scarface with guns blazing, or even have him be sent to a prison for the rest of his life. And although that kind of ending is the reality of what usually happens, no one ever really thinks about the other side of it, the other reality. And that is that a lot of kingpins and dealers also end up becoming just like Franklin, but no one pays attention to them because everyone sees addicts for who they are and never who they were or what they've been through. So I'm very pleased with the ending of Snowfall because they decided not to glorify being in the game. They decided to tell the real of what happens when you put money before morals, material before family, and status before life. It can lead a person down a path of unhappiness, feeling empty, unfulfilled, and in bondage. And although he might have been crazy at the end of that last episode, Franklin said it himself.
I ain't got no fucking chains on me, man. I'm free. Free from all of it. My fucking way, not yours, and not theirs.
Say